Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. My name is Nazia, and I am a middle-class girl living in a small city. I spent my whole life longing for the smallest of things. Because of this, when I grew older, I clearly told my mother, "Amma, I will never marry into a poor family. I want to be married off to a rich family." My mother was surprised upon hearing this and said, "How can someone like us get a marriage proposal from a wealthy family? We don't even mingle with such people." After hearing this, I too was lost in thought. She was right. We had no access to such people, and getting a proposal from them seemed impossible. I told my mother, "If that's the case, I want to work. I'll go out, meet people, and mingle, and eventually a good and rich man will cross my path." My mother got angry and said, "Behave yourself. How can you, as a respectable girl, say something like that? We didn't educate you just so you could roam around offices and look for a match." Her words only made me angrier. I replied, "What do you want from me, Amma? Should I spend my whole life stuck inside this house? The proposals I'm getting are not even worth considering. And you know it too. I'm young, beautiful, and any good, rich man could marry me. Just let me work, and I'll prove myself." I created such a commotion at home that eventually my mother gave me permission to work. With my degree in hand, I roamed the streets for a few days, and one day I got a job at an office. I became a secretary to my boss, Akram. He was a busy person, always in need of a secretary. He had little time, and my job was to organize his meetings and manage his files. I spent most of my time with him. A month passed quickly, and during this time, I met a lot of people, but none of them were rich or worthy of my attention, except for my boss. But the thought of marrying him never crossed my mind. He was a millionaire, and why would he marry me? He had no shortage of relationships or money, so I never paid him any attention and kept searching for other men around the office. Then one day, my boss himself proposed to me, and I was left stunned. I looked at him in surprise, and he smiled and said, "You are a very good girl. You've never bothered me, and unlike other girls, you haven't tried to trap me. I feel like I've been looking for a simple girl like you." Hearing my boss's words, I was not only surprised but also found his simplicity amusing. After some hesitation, I accepted his proposal. He then said, "My family will never agree to bring a proposal for you because we are very rich. I don't have my parents, but I do have an elder brother and sister-in-law, and they want me to marry someone of their choice. But I want to marry you. That's why I'll bring the proposal myself. And after the marriage, I'll tell my family about you." I was so happy just thinking about marrying Akram that I didn't even object to this. However, when Akram came to my house with the proposal, my mother had objections about the fact that his family hadn't come. But I managed to explain to her that his parents weren't alive, and his elder sister-in-law might not be a good woman. After hearing this, my mother was quiet. A week later, Akram and I had a simple wedding, and he took me to his house. It wasn't just a house, it was a grand palace. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt like my life had changed, and I truly believed I was incredibly lucky. Just as I entered, I saw a 25-year-old, beautiful young woman walking toward me, dressed in fashionable clothing. She looked very rich and beautiful. My eyes lingered on her appearance. I thought to myself, Akram had told me that only his elder brother and sister-in-law live with him. So who is this woman? Could she be Akram's sister? I had already seen Akram's elder brother, Shehzad, so I was sure she couldn't be my sister-in-law. Maybe she is Shehzad's daughter. She came closer to me, looked me up and down, and then asked in surprise, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" I didn't know how to respond. I had no idea who she was or what Akram had told his family about me. So I just stayed silent and looked at her. In anger, she snapped, "Are you mute? How did you come into my house? Who are you?" Hearing her words, my face turned red. I wanted to reply to her sharply, but I stayed quiet because of Akram. A few moments later, Akram entered. Seeing me in silence, he quickly came close to me, and then, looking at the girl, said with great politeness, "Sister-in-law, this is my wife, Fazila. I have married her." As soon as Akram spoke, the girl's face changed, and my senses were shaken as well. Akram had called her sister-in-law. Was she my sister-in-law? But how could a 25-year-old woman be my sister-in-law when my brother-in-law, Akram's elder brother, was between 55 and 60 years old? The girl in anger said to Akram, "Are you out of your mind, Akram? Who have you brought here? Who have you married? You know that your brother had already chosen Ramsha for you, and we were about to go with the proposal soon." She was speaking to Akram with great fury, and I was just looking at her from head to toe. Akram said, "Sister-in-law, I had told you that I wouldn't marry Ramsha, but you and my brother didn't listen to me. That's why I went ahead and got married so that you wouldn't take a proposal for Ramsha. Fazila is my wife, and I want to spend my life with her now. I want you to convince brother to accept Fazila and approve our marriage," my husband said humbly, as if she were an older woman and he were the younger one. Hearing my husband's words, my sister-in-law said, "All right, if you've married her, then I'll talk to your brother. But tell this girl to quickly learn our ways because I think you've picked up a girl from a poor family." My sister-in-law spoke with such arrogance that I felt even more embarrassed. In front of her, I felt so small and insignificant. She then glanced at me and walked back to her room. Akram looked at me and smiled, saying, "If she accepts you, then consider it done. Brother will agree too. He listens to everything she says because she takes great care of him and loves him dearly." Akram explained to me in such a way that I was left astonished. This 25-year-old girl seemed almost my equal. "Is this really your elder sister-in-law? Your brother must be about 50 years old, and she looks so young. I thought she might be your niece." Hearing my question, Akram smiled and said, "Yes, just like me, brother also had an arranged marriage, but the difference is that my sister-in-law comes from a wealthy family, while you come from a humble one. But don't worry, she'll make everything right. Just do what she tells you to do." After hearing Akram's words, I nodded in agreement. I had to make my place in this house. Fate had given me the opportunity to change my destiny, and I wanted to make the most of it. If I had to serve Akram's sister-in-law for that, I wouldn't mind. Akram told me that his brother had gone to another city for 2 days, and during that time, I needed to win his sister-in-law's heart. Once his brother returned, she would convince him to accept me. Then Akram took my hand and led me to his large room, where he made me sit on the velvet bed. Gradually, all my desires began to be fulfilled. Akram showered me with his love, and even though he was a 40-year-old man, his love for me was immense. He truly loved me. On our first night of marriage, he gently shared his love with me, and I felt that my life had become much easier. But little did I know my happiness would only last for a few days. The next morning when I woke up, my whole body ached. I took a shower and stood by the large window of the room looking at the lawn for a long time. Then I thought that I should leave the room and take a look around the house. Akram was still asleep, so I decided to walk around the house. To my surprise, I found my sister-in-law in the kitchen, busy preparing food with the servants. I was even more surprised to see that she was doing more work than the servants. I had thought of winning her heart so that I could strengthen my position in the house, so I decided to step into the kitchen myself. The servants were standing behind her, quickly cleaning the entire house according to her commands. I realized the position Akram's sister-in-law held in this house because, with just one phone call, Akram immediately got up and came to the breakfast table. Meanwhile, I had tried for a long time to wake Akram up before leaving the room, but he hadn't opened his eyes. Whatever his sister-in-law said, Akram would close his eyes and obediently listen. A 25-year-old girl had both older men completely under her control, and I couldn't digest this fact. Days passed quickly, and after 2 days, my brother-in-law returned. Upon seeing me, they expressed their displeasure, but somehow, his sister-in-law had said something that made them completely silent, and they accepted me. Akram thanked his sister-in-law profusely for this, and he also urged me to respect her, saying I should follow her every command because, without her, my brother-in-law might not have accepted me as his wife. To please Akram, I started flattering his sister-in-law. Although sometimes I felt jealous of how she had everything under control in the house, I would remain silent, thinking that Akram loved her, and for his sake, I had to respect her. My 25-year-old sister-in-law was an energetic and capable woman. By the time I woke up, she had already completed most of the housework and was always impeccably dressed. Her hair left loose. I had never seen her in poor attire. She was always well prepared and took great care of her husband, following him everywhere and looking after his food and drink. Within 10 days, I was astonished to see that a rich woman who had everything she could need and with plenty of servants around did her husband's smallest tasks herself. Akram's many matters were also handled by his sister-in-law, especially at night when she prepared milk for her husband. Seeing her dedication, I was left amazed. I never thought that wealthy women also did housework. Because of her, I also had to start helping with the chores. Otherwise, I would have preferred to have the servants do everything. But seeing her work so hard, I felt ashamed, and Akram also encouraged me to spend more time with his sister-in-law. So I spent most of my time working alongside her. However, I found peace in this big house. One night when I went to the kitchen to get milk for Akram, I saw my sister-in-law roasting and grinding chickpeas. I asked in surprise, "Sister-in-law, what are you doing?" At first she hesitated, then replied, "I'm grinding chickpeas. After that, I'll mix them with dates and milk to give to your brother." I was taken aback and asked, "Is everything okay? Is brother unwell or is there some problem?" She smiled and said, "No, nothing like that. I just take care of your brother so that he doesn't feel weak. After all, he is getting older, but I want him to remain young and strong." With that, she quickly mixed the ground powder and dates into the milk and went to her room. After she left, I was left pondering. Could she really put in so much effort for her husband? Was love so blind that she was wasting her youth on a 55-year-old man, while girls like her could have any young man? Lost in these thoughts, I took the milk to Akram's room. Akram noticed my unease and asked, "What's wrong? You seem upset." I sat down in front of him and said, "Akram, your sister-in-law is so young. How did she marry your brother?" At my words, Akram's face tightened, and he said, "What is wrong with my brother?" "Yes, he's older, but what does age matter when there's love? Your sister-in-law didn't care about the age difference. She married him because he's a good man. And look, she is maintaining this relationship with all her heart." He continued, "I want you to understand your responsibilities the way your sister-in-law has. From now on, take on all the responsibilities and do everything with as much enthusiasm as she does." Akram's words made me feel uneasy. He kept comparing me to his sister-in-law, expecting me to be like her, to do everything like she did. And I didn't like that. But I didn't let him see that I was upset. I smiled and decided to try my best to do everything for Akram. 2 months after our marriage, my mother suggested, "If you get pregnant, you'll secure your place in this house forever. Think about having a baby soon." But what could I tell her? My 40-year-old husband was so busy with his work that he barely had time for me. Shortly after our wedding, Akram started a new project, which kept him even more occupied. Akram would come home exhausted at night and go straight to bed, while I could hear the sounds of talking from his brother and sister-in-law's room well into the night with the light on. Gradually, I realized that my sister-in-law was right. Although my brother-in-law was in his 50s, he seemed more youthful than Akram. I then started to think that it might be the milk my sister-in-law gave him every night that kept him so strong. There must be a reason behind all her efforts. The next night, when I went to the kitchen to get milk for Akram, my eyes fell on the jar of ground powder that my sister-in-law had prepared. I thought, if I add this to Akram's milk, will he become as strong as his brother? Will my life improve even more? As soon as this thought crossed my mind, I quickly opened the jar, which I assumed contained the ground chickpeas, and mixed it with Akram's milk. I stirred it well and quietly went to my room. I handed Akram the glass of milk without saying anything. Akram was busy with his work on his laptop. Without even looking at the glass, he quickly drank it all and handed the glass back to me. I thought to myself, just like my sister-in-law, I would now give Akram this milk regularly. But I had no idea that even one glass would have such a heavy impact on me. After giving Akram the glass of milk, I lay down on the bed in peace. Akram had been very busy with his project lately, working late into the night on his laptop or going to bed early, so he didn't pay much attention to me. I was just thinking to myself that if I get pregnant soon, my life would change for the better. In fact, I had already changed so much for myself. Who would have thought that a middle-class girl like me would ever become the daughter-in-law of such a grand house? I never even imagined having such a big house. It was my fate that had brought me this far. Now I just needed to secure my position. In the 2 months I had spent with Akram, I had genuinely developed a lot of love for him. My sister-in-law wasn't a bad woman either. She had taken care of the house and her elderly husband with so much dedication that I would sometimes be amazed. I thought to myself, I too would start serving Akram like her, giving him the special milk every day so that my life could change and I could secure my future. While I was lost in these thoughts, I eventually fell asleep, and I didn't know how much time had passed. Suddenly, I woke up with the sensation that Akram was overpowering me. I looked up and saw him leaning over me, his eyes turning red. Seeing Akram in that condition, I panicked, and then he grabbed my throat, saying, "What did you put in the milk?" Hearing his words, I was terrified because he was speaking in a very broken manner. I hurriedly asked, "Akram, what's happening to you?" But without answering, he suddenly sat up on the bed and blood started coming from his mouth. This sight made me scream, and at the sound of my screams, my sister-in-law and brother rushed in. As soon as my brother saw Akram's condition, he said, "He must have taken some poison." Hearing that, the ground beneath my feet seemed to vanish. My brother and sister-in-law quickly put Akram into the car and rushed to the hospital, and I was with them, my heart heavy with fear. Akram had collapsed, his head in my lap, unconscious. When we reached the hospital, the doctor confirmed my brother's suspicion and told us that Akram had been poisoned. Akram's treatment began, and the poison was flushed out of his stomach, but it was very dangerous, and his condition remained critical. I was praying nonstop, and nearly 12 hours later, Akram regained consciousness. The doctor told us that the milk Akram had drunk had been poisoned. As soon as my brother heard this, he immediately called the police and had me arrested because he was sure I had done it. I screamed and tried to explain that I hadn't done anything, but within moments, I found myself sitting behind bars, tears streaming from my eyes. Fate had played such a cruel trick on me, and I couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. 2 days passed, and no one came to visit me, nor did anyone arrange for my bail. After 2 days, Akram came to see me, and when I saw him, I started crying and said, "Akram, please believe me. I didn't do anything." Akram replied, "I want to believe you, but why did you put poison in my milk?" The glass I had drunk from was also medically tested, and it was confirmed that it indeed contained poison. Akram asked, "What did you mix into the milk?" I told Akram tearfully, "I didn't mix anything. I just added chickpea powder, the same powder that my sister-in-law adds for your brother. I wanted to see you healthy and strong. You were so busy with work, so we mixed that powder into your milk," I explained. Hearing this, Akram was stunned. He asked, "Which powder does my sister-in-law give to my brother?" I replied, "The powder from yellow chickpeas that she grinds and adds to milk with dates." Akram became silent and didn't say anything. Then Akram's brother entered the room and said, "Why are you sitting here with this woman? I told you she married you for wealth, and now look, she was trying to kill you." Akram looked at me for a moment and then asked his brother, "What kind of milk do you drink every night?" His brother was shocked and replied, "I don't drink any milk. You know I don't like milk at all." Akram turned to me and said, "Now tell me, why are you lying?" His words made my skin crawl, and I immediately said, "Akram, I am not lying. Really, your sister-in-law adds something to the milk and takes it to your room. She told me herself that she does it to improve your strength." Akram and his brother fell silent for a moment and then left quietly. The next day, Akram came to me and said, "There's no such powder in the kitchen, and the servants don't know about it either. You must admit it. You plan to kill me. I still love you, but accept it. I'll save you if you admit that you did it." After hearing this, I shook my head in denial and said, "I really love you. I didn't do anything." Akram sat with me for a long time, crying, as if he couldn't believe I was innocent. I kept assuring him of my innocence. We got home. We heard voices coming from my sister-in-law's room. Akram went to the door of her room and heard her talking on the phone saying, "I've trapped this poor girl so well that she'll spend her entire life behind bars. And then I'll arrange a grand wedding for Rimshaw and Akram." I knew that one day she would give her husband the same powder in the milk. Out of jealousy, my sister-in-law continued, She said she thought I was giving my husband that strengthening powder, so I poisoned it on purpose. Now watch, neither Akram nor the courts will ever forgive her. And then I'll proudly arrange Akram's wedding to Ramshah, bringing my chosen daughter-in-law into this house. These two brothers are so naive and foolish. Ramshah and I will rule this place. My sister-in-law laughed as her entire scheme spilled out before Akram and me. Akram was stunned, and just then my brother stormed in. At first, he refused to believe Akram's story, but after conducting his own inquiries, he discovered it was all true. She had plotted exactly as I'd said. Without hesitation, my brother divorced her on the spot and threw her out of the house. In reality, she'd intended from the start to replace me with Ramshah, her cousin. She wasn't wealthy in her own right. Every penny she possessed came from my brother. She simply wanted to secure Ramshah's future, so she framed me for attempting to murder my own husband. Thank God Akram survived and wasn't fatally harmed. My brother apologized to me, and Akram did too. Today, I'm living a happy life with my husband. My brother has fallen silent ever since. He truly loved his ex-wife, but her greed destroyed everything, and now she sits at her parents' home, bearing the stigma of divorce. I haven't only devoted myself to serving Akram, I've also taken on caring for my brother. Soon we plan to find a good, respectable girl to marry him and restore his happiness. If there's any widow or divorced woman interested in marrying my brother-in-law, please let us know in the comments.